Welcome. This is Chris and Rick Talk Guitars. That's Chris over there.
Hello.
Hi, and I'm Rick. And today we're going to talk about the Tube Screamer.
Yay.
Yeah. The cool little green pedal that everybody loves, everybody has had, sold, and then repurchased probably. Tell me a little bit, Chris, about your love for the Tube Screamer.
I love the Tube Screamer. It's been on my board since 1996 or so. Oh. And the thing about it is it's been on my board, not only that, but it's been turned on the entire time. I'm one of those always on Tube Screamer people. So it's just plugged in my board and I step on it and it stays on for the whole show. So yeah, it's been on my board and on since 1996.
So that's the foundation of your sound.
It's the foundation of my sound. I'm a fan of the pedal. I like everything about it. I like the green color. I like the different versions of them.
Which one do you have, by the way?
I have two of them. I have a 90s TS9 reissue, and I have an 80s TS10.
Oh,
and
cool.
I like them both. I mean, the TS9 is on my main board, and the TS10 I use around the house, and I also have on a small mini board that I take to rehearsals and whatnot.
It's your house pedal, huh?
Yeah, my house pedal. I wear my house coat. And
nice.
play.
What do you think? What are your feelings about the 808?
I've never owned one. I like them. I've played through them.
You played that reissue I had, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. Like I said, I like them all.
Cool.
I don't play favorites. Those three, basically. I think those are the only ones I've had experience with. I know they made some, in some later versions and some custom versions.
Oh, right. And some super. Yeah. I've got a TS9. I've got two, actually, on my board.
Two nines now?
Two nines, baby. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I'm sporting two nines, yeah.
Give me that 808.
I got rid of it.
You did?
Because it didn't jazz me. It was like, and I know what you're saying. They all have their own character their own coolness, but that one for some reason didn't speak to me.
Well, that's the key. I mean, it's got to speak to you. Get rid of it if it doesn't. Get one that does.
But the nines, I really dig them. It's got the cool mid-rangey sound that I like, and I like the overdrive they get. And I have two because I have a Strat and an Explorer, and one is single coil pickup and one is a humbucker.
Fatty.
And so when I'm playing, distorted or overdriven stuff, I want an even sound, right? I don't want to put the humbucker on and then it's way louder than the other guitar.
I got you. No, that's good. A lot of people will do that. They'll use two of them, and some of them they'll one into the other one to get like the turbo Tube Screamer sound. I haven't played the 808s much, but I like them. What I've found for me is nearly any Tube Screamer pedal that I've had or played through, I can make pretty much any one sound like the other one, just with a little tweaking, you know what I mean? So my TS10, if I just set them up the same, my TS10 seems a little bit thinner and a little bit brighter, but I can tweak it to get it to sound just like my 9. They're great. And it's funny, to back up to what you were first saying, and I know it was just kind of introductory talking, but that everybody loves them. It's not quite true, because a lot of people have a problem with the TS pedals, the Tube Screamer pedals, because of what they do to your mid-range.
Oh,
you know what I mean? They actually put mid-range there by, there's a high pass, a little bit of high pass.
They're not transparent.
Right, no, they're not transparent at all. And there's like high pass and low pass that kind of makes it a perceived mid boost. But that's precisely why I like that pedal.
Yeah, and I think, I guess it's not adopted by everybody, but I think historically it is a pedal that lots of guitar players
you're
know and
right.
love.
It's a classic.
And so, but yeah, to your point, exactly, that I've heard similar things where it's like, well, no, it's not transparent enough, or it's, which is fine if that's, but I'm like you, I like mid-range and bring it on, because it's like, that's the cool guitar sound I like.
And I can totally see if somebody plugs into like a Silverface or Black-Faced era Fender amp with their guitar and they got their nice big clean Fender sound, you step on that, things change. So for me, being always on, it's the basis of my sound. So I never use drive. I don't have the drive on. It's kind of, one of those people that just keep the drive all the way down and, turn
it's off completely, the drive?
Yeah, maybe with my Telecaster, I'll put just a little bit in there, just give it a little bit of hair. And then I just open the level up until, it fills out. And, my amp is cooking a little bit to begin with. And it just, for me, it's almost like a a processor. It just puts all my guitars, doesn't matter which one it is, into that mid-rangey zone where I want the tone. Cool. And I'm a person also who I don't have a clean tone and a dirty tone. Right. I just have a tone. I mean, it's the Tube Screamer. And if I want to get more dirt, I lean into it. And, and I might use my volume pedal on the guitar a little bit, but usually it's just, my right hand determines what's clean and what's dirty. It's always, I might use fuzz or something like that, and that's a totally different story. But basically, the tone I go for, whether it's playing like roots, country-ish kind of stuff, or, just straight ahead rock and roll stuff, it's the Tube Screamer is the tone, is the bass tone.
That's cool.
One of the ways I like to use it is my main live amp is a Sovtek MiG 50, and those fuckers are loud. I mean, they're super loud. They sound great when you crank them, but there's no club in Seattle where I can crank it and use it without a pedal.
Right.
So the Tube Screamer, I found, gives me that sound, almost like, that cranked amp. It does that very well. I mean, I don't know whoever made that pedal got that right. You get your amp working, so where it's just pushing a little bit, and use that to go the rest of the way. It sounds like an amp just cranked.
It's almost like an attenuator, actually. Or the way you use it.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how I use it, but it just has that effect. It sounds like an old cranked amp to me.
That's cool.
And I go for that sound with it, no matter what amp I'm playing in. So, and it's pretty. You can get really pretty if you play with a light touch, and maybe back your volume off a little bit. But that's all my clean tone is the Tube Screamer.
Well, that sounds great. So,
well, thanks. I like it. It's like my favorite pedal. I mean, it's kind of like a pedal you don't really get that excited about because it doesn't do anything really other than that. But
but like I said, I like the tones it gets with when it's overdriven. I do use the gain and all that stuff, and I think it sounds cool. It sounds mid-rangey and warm. It has a warm sound to me in terms of a gain pedal.
It's not as compressed as like a Rat. A Rat does a little bit more compression. It compresses a little bit, but what I find, I'm going to ask you if you find the same thing, because you just mentioned a number of guitars that you use. What I like about it is the character of the guitar comes through, even with that, even though it's more perceived mid-range, a Tele still sounds like a Tele.
Totally.
And it's not like this artificial layer added to it. So I mean, my Les Paul will do the classic Les Paul humbucker sound through it.
Yeah.
And the Tele would do the classic Tele bridge sound through it. So it's all still there. So I think I think it speaks to your point of what you just said that I don't remember right now. That it maintains. It's kind of like, what did you call it? Like an enhancer? What the fuck did you call it?
An attenuator.
An attenuator.
Yeah.
No, but after that you said something that was like a sonic characteristic. I don't know. Never mind.
Well, you're right, because when I play my Strat through that setup and I have gain, it still sounds like a squishy Strat, which is super cool. And then when I play a humbucker, those characteristics maintain with the pedal, which I totally dig. Yeah, and I came to them late in the game, man. Like, I knew about them, and I was a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan and all that stuff, and that was his pedal and all this other crap. But I used other stuff until fairly recently, and now I have two of them, and I really dig them.
When do you think you started using?
Probably only a few years ago.
Really?
Actually, yeah.
That's right. No, now I remember it was the 808 you bought. I remember when you bought that. Yeah.
And I didn't even use that one that much. I just kind of played around with it because I kind of wanted to get into the club. Right. Of the Tube Screamer, but that was my first entry into it, and then I messed around with that little pedal a little bit, but then I tried the 9, and the 9 just spoke to me right off the bat. It's like, okay, cool, I can dial it in. It sounds good to me, and so.
No, it's a great pedal. I mean, and today there are so many great overdrive pedals that it kind of probably gets a little bit lost in that, but I don't know. I think it's earned its place. There's a lot of people who have a version of that, and some of them will try to improve upon it. They'll make more bass or something like that, and I think it's perfect the way it is.
It is. Like you're saying, it's like there's a ton of boutique pedals now and just pedals all over the place, but a lot of people still try to emulate this pedal, right? They'll have their version of the Tube Screamer or whatever it is, or their so I kind of dig that, because once a pedal or a guitar kind of makes its mark, then everybody tries to copy it or emulate it. And Tube Screamer is definitely one of those pedals where people try to do that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And but they'll put their little twists on it. Like, here is our Tube Screamer, but it has...
Yeah, and they'll dip it in wax or something, so you can't see the circuit they ripped off.
Right. Oh, yeah, the gooping pedals.
Yeah.
No, it's a great one. I'm trying to think of when it came out. I think the 808 was very late 70s.
I think you're right.
And what else was out? The yellow Boss OD, was it the OD1?
I know what you're talking about.
Super Overdrive. The yellow thing, that was out, and that came out. I didn't know about it. And it's so odd that I didn't know about it, because I was an avid reader of Guitar Player magazine, and then recently I've been collecting old Guitar Player magazines, and it's in there quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it just passed me by for some reason. I found it in the 90s working in a guitar shop, but I was using the Yellow Boss 3-knob overdrive, which is kind of a similar circuit. It's something it does the same thing, but I so much more took to the Tube Screamer when I found
and I was like you. I knew about it and I saw it everywhere, but somehow it just didn't connect with me. You know what I mean? I don't know why. I was using other stuff too. I used a Rat for a while, and
I like the Rat
some
too.
Other cool. Yeah, those old Rats are super cool. But and being like into Stevie Ray like I was, you'd think I would have been like, oh yeah, I gotta get a Tube Screamer, but I wasn't until, like I said, recently. So, but
wow.
But like the vintage ones go for a shit ton now, right? Depending on what it is.
Yeah, the 808s. I forget. I knew all this information at one point because I was looking for some reason. I don't know what it was. I think they can get up like $700 to $800 for the 808s.
It's still less than a Klon.
Yeah, $350, $300-ish for a vintage TS9 or so. And honestly, I don't think that's unreasonable if you want an old one. I mean, it's a lot of money for a pedal.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I totally understand wanting to own a real one. That TS10 right there that you're looking at, that I got, those used to be like, they were disposable. I mean, you would buy those and they would break because they're a little bit more cheaply made than the TS9s. They'd break and you just throw them in a box and go get another one. And they were totally looked down upon. And I recall that when I was practicing with a band in the 90s, we had a shared band space and there was a room that had a bunch of shit in it. And there was a bunch of broken ones in there that people just throw them in that room.
Hilarious.
And when we moved out, they just all went to the dump. I'm like, shit.
Gosh.
Now those things are...
they're vintage.
And that's like $150 pedal now.
Oh my gosh.
And it's pretty amazing, but it does sound good. I'm actually a fan of the TS10.
How does it differ, do you think, from your other Tube Screamer?
As I mentioned, sound-wise, it seems a little bit thinner sounding and a little brighter. But again, I can get the same sound as my TS9. My TS9, I should mention, I was curious way back in the early 2000s, so I did a mod to my reissue TS9, and I put the chip that it's supposed to have in a couple other bits, I think a couple resistors or something. I didn't notice any difference, so but I'm glad I did it. I tried it anyway. So both of my TS9 and that have the same chip, which is the highly acclaimed JR something. I don't know. I'm not that
the super chip
up on the chips, but there's a lot of chip worship that goes with those pedals. Like people just freak out about them, and it's interesting because if you watch some of the more, kind of astute, read pedal makers, I don't know. What's interesting is, like, I've seen some of these boutique pedal makers who, claim backed with science that the way that the chip is in those pedals doesn't make any difference. It can't really in that type of circuit for some reason.
Right.
But people will swear by them. They'll, change that chip and you'll get a new pedal, basically. What else was I going to say about the TS10? No, it's great, and it is. I mean, you gotta be careful because the pots are kind of on the board, and so is the battery jack. It's a little more lightweight, but I've had that one for 4 or 5 years now. It's still going strong.
Nice.
But yeah, I haven't tried many boutique overdrives. I know there's tons of them. I'm not really I'm not that into it. I'm not a boutique person at all.
Yeah.
It's like I'm kind of lazy. I just like, I'm a real big fan of music that's already been made, and a lot of it was made in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Yeah.
And that stuff was all made with that stuff. So I figure if I can't get the sounds I want with that stuff, it's like I'm not going to get the sounds. So
yeah, and I kind of agree. I mean, I've played a bunch of boutique amps and not a huge amount of pedals, but I played a bunch of pedals because I've gone through some pedal odysseys
right
as of late, and yeah, I gotta agree. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff that was made in the 70s and 80s and 60s is just cool, and whatever they did, however they did it, yeah, I mean, all those recordings that we love were using that gear, and so I'm kind of the same way. It's right. Like, yeah, if it was good enough for them, it's good enough for me, and yeah. And so, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's just my take on it. I mean, and it's kind of a lazy way to go. It's like, well, I don't have to spend all this time dicking around.
Well, we're lazy
like,
too.
Yeah,
that's the other
It's like,
thing.
I'll just grab that and make it work. I'm kind of a make it work person. You know what I mean? It's like, find something, but it has to speak to me too. It's like you were saying, the 808 and the 9. The 808 didn't speak to you, so you got one that spoke to you. And, you can make an argument, well, with a little bit of tweaking, you could probably get them to sound so much closer, but it doesn't matter. It's not speaking to you. You know what I mean? And you get something that speaks to you and you make it work. That's my MO.
Yeah, and I agree. And you're right. I mean, I probably could have messed with it, but again, exactly, I felt like I had to mess with it to the degree that it wasn't speaking to me. And that for some reason, the 9 was just so easy to dial in. It just sounded right to my ear. And it's like, okay, cool, that's the pedal. Because I'm like you, too. I'm pretty lazy. And like once I get a setup, I'm pretty happy. And I don't know. I don't want to go.
One thing interesting I found about this pedal, I was reading, and I wish I could remember who this was, but I'm never going to remember because it was just some little article that came down my feed. It was some woman guitar player was talking about her setup and her rig, it was really cool. And she was talking about the Tube Screamer. She found the Tube Screamer and she really liked it, but she kind of sheepishly talking about it because she says, I think it's such a dad pedal. That's what she was talking. I thought that was really funny, but the thing I thought was funny about it is her choice of guitar was a Stratocaster, which to me is kind of like
a dad guitar.
The dad guitar, the biggest dad guitar. But it's just interesting to get, and she was young too, so I'm always fascinated by people's take. The Tube Screamer is going to be around forever. I mean, people are going to be discovering this for a long time, and people are going to be cloning it, and people are going to be talking about how it sucks and about how great it is and what chips are whatnot. So it's a classic piece of gear.
That's hilarious that she considered it a dad pedal. But yeah, I mean, maybe it was just the context of how old she was and her perception of that pedal. Right?
Well,
you know what I mean?
It's like you got Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Stevie Ray Vaughan, all these like blues, like
blues
dad
dudes.
blues.
Dad blues.
Guys are like,
khaki pedal.
I think that's kind of what
that's
she was driving at, because it's true. Such... But, the bottom line is it's a great pedal.
Yeah, it is.
It does something. And that's the thing when we talk about modding this pedal. I'm a firm believer that whoever made that pedal, whoever designed that pedal, knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And, it's like when you step on that and you're losing your bass and, you're getting more perceived mid-range, it's because just listen to what your amp is doing.
Exactly.
I mean, it's doing that for a reason. And it may not work for your setup, and that's fine. But I don't think it was an oversight. There's an oversight in that pedal, like it's like a mistake or anything.
No, I agree. And if it doesn't speak to you, don't use it. But yeah, I agree it's going to be around forever. Because the thing I dig is like a lot of younger players do the research and they find out what kind of guitars people were using and gear, and they go get it. They seek it out. Like I know people seeking out Echoplexes and all this other cool shit that people used to use.
I'd be seeking one of those.
And the Tube Screamer's right up there because it's used on a lot of stuff that people have heard and recorded and probably seen live.
It's just a cool pedal. The only place where I find that sometimes it doesn't do super well is at lower volumes. Like if I'm recording and I have to get a guitar part kind of quiet, sometimes it doesn't sound that great because you're not pushing the amp enough. And I think the Rat might be a little bit better. I have a Rat too that might be a little better at sometimes to get a more convincing loud rock sound at a quiet volume. But that's about the only thing I can think about it. One thing about that pedal, and I totally get this, and this is something that I just heard about like in the last few years or something. I never really thought about, but a lot of people say that it works really well with Fender amplifiers because Fenders, black face to silver face have that scooped, smiley faced sonic curve. And with the mid-range that has, it makes
it fills it in.
It fills it in and it makes your amp sound a little bit more like, like a British, or I don't know if it's specifically trying to make it sound British, but it just gives it more mid-range. It makes it punch more. And then it also brings you out. I mean, you have a bass player. You know, it's like you don't need to be down there with, you know, all that extra bass. It just muddies things up. So, you know, I like a lot of mid-range in guitars. I mean, all my favorite amps are like, you know, like from the 50s, those amps, and they sound almost like cardboard. I mean,
yeah,
there's so
exactly.
much mid-range.
Yeah.
But that's a great fucking sound.
I totally
you turn that
agree.
up. And it's just it's a total like box. I don't have a problem with a boxy amp if it's boxy in the right way. Some of those small amps are just boxy in the most perfect way.
Yeah.
And the Tube Screamer gives me just a little bit of that in any amp that I put it in.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm the same way. I like that sound because to me, it that's electric guitar sound. To me, is that kind of boxy-ish, mid-rangey sound that I love.
Right.
And if I go back in time and to guitar sounds I really like, that's what I like, and that's what resonates with me. Yeah, and the Tube Screamer does capture that sound.
What was I listening to just recently? It may have been the song "No Quarter" by Led Zeppelin. I'm not sure, but there was something where I heard a guitar part that would never fly today because it's kind of a really shitty sounding guitar part, but it's so cool for the song.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I miss. You used to get that all the time, these guitar sounds. It's like, that sounds really fucked up and shitty, but it's so cool. And that doesn't happen. I think everybody's so obsessed by tone now that it's like they have the perfect overdrive and the perfect, you know, everything that I hope that's not getting squeezed out because listening to old records like that's some of the coolest shit is hearing these like really thin and like fuzzy and like something that, you know, we would just totally be like, no, you can't have that today.
Yeah.
In a record.
No, I totally agree with that. And I think once bands start to get in a situation where they're playing together, then they realize that bedroom sound that they thought that they dialed in and thought was just the shit doesn't work with a band because you're right. There's a bass player, maybe you have a keyboard player, you've got a singer, you've got drums. That neat dialed in super boutique tone you got in your bedroom with your socks and sandals doesn't fly with the band because and exactly, I love all these funky old guitar sounds that exactly like if somebody were to scrutinize them today, they'd go, wow, that sounds like crap. It's like, no, it sounds awesome because it's just it's got character. It fits the song, but it's got character to it, right? It's like it's got grit to it. It's got I think I totally agree with that. And again, the Tube Screamer is a great pedal to kind of, you know, it's not transparent. It's going to color your sound in a cool way most of the time. And it's just, I'd recommend the pedal. Like if you haven't played one, I suggest going out and getting any one, like Chris said, get any of the numbers that, it doesn't matter.
They're really cheap used. It's unbelievable. Like I think I've seen them like as low as like $40 used for a reissue TS9.
Yeah,
I mean that's a great deal. I think
it is. But even new, they're like under $100. Right. I mean, it's like you can.
And the 808 is more than that, but
yeah, the 9's like under $100 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly, $99 or something like that. That's, I mean, any pedal for $100 is a good deal, and something classic like that. And as far as I know, I mean, the reissues are made just as well as the Japanese.
They are, man. The housings are really nice. Everything's cool. Yeah,
mine's been solid since the 90s, like mid 90s, and it's been rocking all this time, no problems. So,
and as I think back to when I played with bands, I can remember distinctly seeing a Tube Screamer on like most pedal boards or just on the floor back before there were pedal boards.
Until I came out to Seattle, and the group of musicians I started playing with, they're like, that's when that kind of like popped up. I'm like, what's that? Oh, you're playing that? Yeah. I mean, I had my little yellow Boss, and back and before that in Michigan, all we had was you had your PV Bandit 65 with this built-in saturation.
What more would you need?
Yeah, you don't need any drive.
Yeah, but out here, I saw them a lot. I saw Tube Screamers a lot. I don't know why. Maybe
you guys were more savvy, I guess, than I mean. The Midwestern.
Well, it was before all the shit hit the fan. It was before grunge and all that stuff.
Oh, right, that changed. And then you got the Big Muff, which we can talk about it another time.
Yeah. Well, cool. It's something that you and I love to rant about and talk about is the Tube Screamer, and also in the context of boutique pedals. But I'd put it up against a lot of other pedals in terms of just what it does.
Have you, not to interrupt, but have you ever played a Klon?
Yes, I have played a few Klons.
I have not. I mean, I would be interested, but I have no interest in the pedal.
Yeah.
But I'd just be because it's got so much, it's such a storied, like, history or, it's just like one of those like things that are just so elevated and pricey that I'd be a little bit curious, but not that curious.
Well, yeah, I was curious, and like our friends that have the great guitar shop down in Seattle, Trevor has a Klon, and some of the other dudes down there are Klon devotees, and so I played. They've had a bunch come through the store, and I played through them, and I don't know. Again, if it speaks to you and that's your pedal, that's awesome. But they're so expensive. It's like we talk. I'd rather put that money towards a cool old blackface amp or something like that, rather than spend like nearly $2,000 on this Klon pedal. That frankly, I don't know. I don't think it sounds all that much better than a lot of other overdrive pedals that you can get for a fraction of the price.
That's cool. I'm glad things like that exist. Yeah. I'm glad people find joy in them. So
totally.
I'm never was that curious, but now I think I am a little bit, just because
you got to play one just to see.
I may someday.
Well, again, that was a really fun topic to discuss. This is Chris and Rick Talk Guitars. Check us out on social media and subscribe to us on all the cool stuff: Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, all that jazz. Like our crap on social media. And awesome. All right. Well, we're out of here. Bye.
Goodbye.